The big challenge with as we look at attack surfaces in today's world is we don't know where anybody is. We don't know what our enterprise truly looks like. The definition of an enterprise at one point in time was, hey, it's inside my gated walls, inside the castle walls, and I knew what was there is what my enterprise was. More data is created outside of the data center than in the data center. So as our data is being created externally, now we're going, okay, what is our enterprise? What does it consist of? And so we have to change how we start to define how we look at it. An attack surface is really that change of conversation where we start to say, let's look at our environment, not just from an inside viewpoint, but how does an attacker look at me? How does a hacker look at me? What do I look like from that viewpoint? So attack surfaces starts to become a much bigger conversation of where's my data? How do I look from the outside? How do I look from the inside? And now I can start to understand who has access to data and how can I control the devices, the data, and the users, because I know I'm not going to have complete visibility at any moment. But if I start to look at it in those three angles, it gives me the ability to understand where my risks are. So as we talk about the maturing of our attack surface management, the timeline it takes from detection to remediation is really how we can tell how mature our processes are. Can I actually drive down the risks that the enterprise has? Do I have to be able to respond to everything immediately? Well, not really. I need to be able to respond to those top high-level risks. So prioritization is a big thing. As we look at the attack surface and we start talking about how we really want to drive that down, it's the completeness of our visibility. We actually have to have that complete broad view of devices, software, and people. If we can look at it from those three angles, and we start to talk about internal and external, and then prioritizing, now we actually have the ability to look at the highest priorities and drive down true risk. So the outcomes in a true attack surface management strategy, as we look at as we talk about maturing and really having those outcomes, the outcomes have to be a couple of things. So number one, we have to make sure that we keep that digital employee experience or the DEX capabilities front of mind. Our users have to have a better experience, because if we put all of the security in place, but we ruin our users' experience, they will circumvent us. They will put more effort into finding ways around our security than we can put in defending. Once we have that in place, we have to make sure that we can say, I have a good comprehension of what my real risks are, that I have done a comprehensive view from devices, software, and users, and I actually have actionable capabilities. Sometimes we'll see people that are like, hey, I have a great discovery product. I have this view. I have 5 ways I'm looking at my devices. I'm really covered. But they've never reconciled that and created themselves actions. So when we see the real gain is when we can see that data reconciling and becoming actionable for the customers. And now they're able to really drive down that true risk that's coming in their environment. So having an attack surface management that's dynamic enough that it understands the risks that are going on with the vulnerabilities that are found in the market. Each finding has a risk when it's found. And then a lot of times that stays static. Hey, we found a new vulnerability in software XYZ, and we looked at all the risks and we scored a 5. Well, that's not so bad. That's a medium. And then some attacker finds it and looks at it and he's like, oh, it's only a 5, but if I pair it with this other one, I now have RPE capabilities. So our attack surface management software and prioritization have to understand the dynamic nature of each vulnerability and each finding that's out there. And as they morph, and if they trend, or if they get tied to a ransomware, or they get exploited, now we understand how to drive and change those prioritizations dynamically. So DEX scores, reduction of open attacks or the open risks. And as we look at that complete visibility with prioritization is really the key outcomes you're after.